Hello everyone, this is part 38 of What If Naruto Had a Hug That Changed Everything, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Very soon, Naruto-kun. I will enlighten you and this entire planet to the truth, Kuro gurgled before he slowly shut Naruto's eyelids. The red-coated man noticed the absolute faintest of disturbances from behind him and he steadily turned his head to the side to see. After a few moments of scaling the forested behind him, Kuro turned his head back to Naruto only to have a high-heeled sandal collide into his face and crush that side of his entire skull. The foot twisted and dug into its target for extra resonance before the monster was sent tumbling away. But out of natural reflex to him, Kuro immediately flipped to his feet and skidded to a perfect stop in one foul swoop, his head lowered. After a few seconds, he lifted his head and saw one of the last people he'd expect to see at a time like this. Well, if it isn't Tsunade-chan's little bee in the black dress that Kitsune described to me. I didn't think she'd actually catch me off guard. The woman in the black dress kept a hardened fighting stance in opposition to Kuro before she quickly shifted her attention to the fallen blonde next to her, face down in the dirt. Naruto, her thoughts wandered before her attention was snapped back to the oppressor. Shizune, isn't it? Kuro called out while holding his slowly regenerating skull. What brings a pig tamer like you to a place like this, and where'd you learn to kick like that? At this Shizune thought of her creeping despair. Incredible. I dealt him my strongest kick to the head and he's still able to talk straight, she thought. With one last forceful adjustment, Kuro reconfigured his face to its original look and smiled at the brunette. Don't like to talk? Well, I guess that's fine. But allow me a question. Why on earth are you defending this boy? I was just going to enlighten him to the very meaning of his pathetic existence and make him a real man. What's wrong with that? Kuro said with a mock-curious tone of voice. As though she didn't even hear the beast's question, Shizune spoke. You. Are you the one they call Kuro? She demanded. The red-haired fiend scoffed. No, I'm Puff the Magic Dragon. Of course I'm Kuro. What's it to you anyway? He snarked. A sweat bead made itself present on Shizune's brow. I knew it. Ugh, he looks just as Tsunade-sama described. I can practically see the viciousness de-sping off of him, she thought to herself before she glanced back at the unconscious Naruto. Damn it, child. What were you thinking? Being the busy man that he was, Kuro felt that he had wasted enough of his valuable time in that place. With a sigh, he prepared for departure. It was a privilege to meet your acquaintance this night. However, I have more and more pressing matters to attend to each passing day and I cannot remain in the same place for too long, Kuro said. At this, the black-dressed female glared ferociously at the devil before reaching into her sleeve, altering her stance a bit. You're not leaving this area until I get some answers. What are you planning? How are Akatsuki involved and why are you after this boy? Shizune strongly demanded. Hearing such conviction from his oppressor, Kuro smiled evilly. My, we certainly know quite a bit, don't we? Well, if this were any other time I would kill you where you stand right now, he growled. As a reflex, Shizune shifted her stance and prepared to strike. But, I will allow you to live long enough to see what few mortals ever had the privilege of observing. Besides, you weren't seriously about to fight me, were you? Let me tell you something, child. 20 years ago your mistress was at the top of her game, as were the other Sannin. I should know. I fought 'em all, Kuro said. At this revelation, Shizune's eyes widened tremendously. Nanny. This guy fought all three of the Sannin, she thought. Well, judging by the look on your face, I'll assume that I have your undivided attention. So, let me tell you a story before I go. Konoha Hospital. Ino and Sakura were eagerly awaiting the diagnosis of the auburn-haired girl they had met minutes ago. When they first saw her, her body was riddled with several dry wounds that could have possibly been infected. With their instincts kicking in, both kunoichi rushed the girl to the hospital and managed to get her treatment immediately. Of course, they had to put their wallets together to afford the cost, which left them broke. As they both waited for the news on her condition, they decided to at least engage in conversation. Do you think that she's from this village? Ino asked. I'm not sure. She wasn't wearing a headband, Sakura replied. The blonde female Yamanaka shifted in her seat before continuing. Well, nevertheless, I'm worried about her and what she said before she passed out, she said. Sakura put a finger to her chin. Yeah. They're all S. I hope she'll be alright, she said. Evident how she was masterfully hiding it, Ino was vastly disappointed that they were interrupted from their little activity. Sure, she wanted to help the girl, but she was macking it big with Sakura only minutes ago. If the girl hadn't showed up, Ino was sure that she could have hit home base with her new lover. A deprived frown unwittingly crossed over her facial features. She felt physically starved now. Of course, Ino did have the decency to restrain the urge to pin Sakura to the ground and take her right then, despite the desire that has manifested during the past week to do so, in a hospital no less. That, however, didn't soothe her rising tension though. Ino just wanted to see if the girl was alright and get out of the damn hospital so she could continue where they left off. Just then, Sakura, a familiarly edged voice called out from behind, gaining the pink-haired female's attention. Ano. Sasuke-kun, Sakura said as she rose from her seat, what are you doing here? The young Uchiha approached his teammate. I've been looking all over for you. We need to talk. It's urgent, he said. At first, Sakura hesitated as she shot quick glances to a confused Ino and the doors to the hallway where the poor auburn-haired girl was hauled off to. But Sakura tried to say before Sasuke simply took her by her hand and pulled her. Seriously. This can't wait any longer, Sasuke demanded as he yanked Sakura out of the building, leaving a flabbergasted Ino wondering just what in the F was going on, while at the same time, wondering what else could ruin her chances to go at it with Sakura that day. Outside of hospital, Sakura, I don't care how we do it, but we absolutely must become stronger than we are right now, Sasuke said with an adamant disposition. The jade-eyed genin still looked like Sasuke, like she'd never met him before. Sasuke-kun, what are you talking about? You're acting really strange, she said before crossing her arms. Still, Sasuke remained fixated on what had to be said. Sakura. What I'm about to tell might freak you out, but I'm in no real mood to care, so here goes. When I discovered that Naruto had left, I managed to find him when something came up. When I did, he was confronted with two very powerful shinobi, Sasuke described. By now, Sakura had the Uchiha's full attention and she nodded for him to go on. They were toying with us, I could tell. We were absolutely no match for them until an old, white-haired man saved us, Sasuke continued. But Sasuke-kun, you're acting as if we've never been in situations like that before. You remember the land of waves, right? That was different, Sasuke interjected. Different. These two weren't just stronger, they knew everything about us, the raven-haired boy revealed. Sakura's eyebrow raised. Say what? She said. Sasuke put his hands in his pocket and looked down at the ground. They knew everything, about me, about Naruto, and even about you, Sakura, he said with a low treble. Now Sakura was struck with full-blown fear and suspicion. What? Me? But who were they? She demanded. They said that their names were Nekoshi and Kitsune. Heard of, he questioned. I've never heard those names in my entire life, Sakura said as she tangled her hands together, but why did they attack you? Sasuke shifted where he stood and leaned upon the wall of the hospital. I don't know the whole story, but based on my observation, they seem to be more interested in Naruto, he said. Naruto? Yeah. Said something about their sensei wanting to meet them. It was at that revelation that Sakura was suddenly hit with worry and fright. Naruto was being tracked. What could that have meant? And furthermore, who exactly was this sensei person that was mentioned? None of this really matters at this time though. The point is that we'd better step up our training if we're gonna make a difference, and keep up with Naruto, Sasuke said. At this, Sakura realized that she wasn't the only one who knew how strong Naruto was now. Normally, Sasuke would have ignored any progress that his blonde teammate made because he perceived him as the last either way. But lately that notion had been completely whipped clean from existence. Sasuke, despite the pompous F-ball that he was, acknowledged Naruto's ability and earned a fair amount of his loathing respect. Sakura smiled inwardly. You know. Naruto told me the same thing, she said. Pardon. He said that we all need to become stronger, But the funny thing is, he wants to keep up with you, the pink-haired kunoichi said as she allowed her inward smile to surface. Sasuke's eyes actually widened. As strong as Naruto was, he was still aiming to keep up with him. Not only did that not make sense, but it was also humbling and respectful. Sasuke sighed inwardly. Dobe, he thought before letting a smile cross his face. Suddenly, Sasuke noticed something that he had completely missed. Sakura, you look different. Kid Buu's theme plays. Shizune was blown away by the story that Kuro had told her. That's right. I'm not revealing anything yet. During the whole session, she had absent-mindedly let her fighting stance drop. You see, Shizune, they were no match for me back then, and the results will remain as they were all of those years ago, Kuro growled with an evil smile, and though they were able to defeat me by chance, I will not allow such an embarrassing travesty to repeat itself. Starting tomorrow morning, the Sannin shall meet their end. Finally able to recover from her shock, Shizune instead reestablished her fighting stance and wore a confident smile that Kuro raised a brow to. That sort of thinking will only get you ked, Kuro. A lot can change in 20 years, the brunette boldly stated. At first Kuro simply stared at her in silence. But then, HHMHMHMHMHMHM. Ha 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 ha, he cackled. What's so funny? Shizune demanded. Oh, it's nothing, just the audacity of youth, Kuro said in a horribly demonic voice that rumbled through the air. Just after the red-haired man focused a great deal onto Shizune and struck her with a little gift, the brunette herself was a tad edgy at first, but was suddenly struck with a feeling of overwhelming dread as she slowly blanked out. What assaulted her vision right then was the mind-breaking images of her hellish demise. Tendons being sped the inside out, bones being torn out and used to scrap out her eyes, limbs bitten off, insides clawed and eaten, face rendered to shreds. 3 seconds. After 3 seconds of what felt like an eternity of suffering, Abuji-eyed Shizune found herself back to this plane of reality. Except, this time, her skin was paled out and her heartbeat was erratic. Her lungs ceased to draw breath and her hands and feet were ice cold. The black-dressed female fell to her knees and trembled with her arms wrapped around herself, barely able to acknowledge what she was just hit with. Kuro's intent. The hulking monster took the liberty to start approaching Shizune and the still unconscious Naruto behind her. That was only a mere taste of what I have in store for the Sannin, my dear, Kuro claimed just before he reached into his inner coat pocket and threw a strange powder upon Naruto, and I do so hope that you'll be conscious to witness the final fate of your mistress. Unable to move, Shizune trembled helplessly. No. She stammered before she felt her head being viciously snatched and slammed to the ground. Oh yes, I will take my sweet precious time. I'll have my fun with her, before I kill her. And I'll make you watch, Shizune, Kuro hissed with sadistic delight. By this point, Shizune's face was drenched with tears. You bastard, she roared before her head was whipped up, and then slammed back down to the ground, rendering her unconscious. Sweet dreams, Kuro growled before he trailed his eyes to the side of him was scowled. Why must you always follow me? With that last word and another look at Naruto, Kuro vanished behind a sudden grey fog without a trace of his abominable existence, just when Gigi jutted into the fray. God damn it, I just missed him, the old man cursed before he caught a glimpse at the unconscious shinobi on the ground. I swear you young'uns think you can do anything nowadays. After closer observation, the old guy's eyes squinted. I'm too late. He's already inhaled the spores. It's just as I feared. Recruitment, Gigi thought to himself before taking Shizune upon his shoulders. Sorry kid. But now you're beyond what help I can give you. Perhaps one day, we'll get a chance to meet on good terms. A shame it had to be this way. With that, Gigi gave Naruto a sad and regretful look before vanishing away with Shizune, leaving the unconscious boy all alone. The following morning, at an Otofukugai apartment, Tsunade standing over one of the beds protectively watching over her slumbering pupil. Ever since she had found her lying smack dab in front of her apartment door, the blonde Sannin went into red alert and treated whatever wounds she might have had. Now she was relieved that Shizune wasn't seriously injured. Yet she couldn't help but wonder what had happened to the brunette. Her thoughts were interrupted by a stir from Shizune. Immediately, Tsunade focused all of her attention on her. Once she cracked her eyes open, coaxing weak and groggy moves, Shizune was able to grasp a bit of her surroundings. When she realized that she wasn't in the forest anymore, she shot up with surprise. Naruto, she screamed, startling Tsunade a bit. Shizune, calm down, she ordered, what are you talking about? At first, the black-dressed Jonin was only able to frantically process all of her surroundings. Once she realized that she was out of harm's way and that Naruto was nowhere to be found, Shizune became a little more worried. Tsunade-sama, where's Naruto? She demanded. The blonde woman scoffed slightly. Isn't he still training like a maniac? She said. Oh no, he's still out there, Shizune yelled before shooting out of bed and running to the window. Tsunade was now a little concerned about her pupil's erratic behavior. Shizune. What are you carrying on about? She asked as if she really didn't care. The black-clad Jonin turned an eye to her mentor. He was attacked by Kuro, she exclaimed. He was what? Tsunade yelled. I did what I could to stop him. But how did I get here? Why wasn't Naruto taken back with me? Shizune carried on. The slug tamer lowered her head and retained the blown away expression on her face. Why on earth would he attack the boy? She thought to herself. Once again, however, her thinking was cut short by her pupil, Tsunade-sama. We must get out there and find him, she said. Don't be ridiculous, Shizune. You know as much as I do that he's probably S by now, Tsunade suggested. No. If he fought Kuro all by himself and was only unconscious, then I know he's still alive. Kuro let him live for a reason, Shizune insisted. Now, Tsunade was absolutely blown away. He fought him. All by himself, she thought. Finally, Shizune was able to calm down. What is going on, Tsunade-sama? I know there's a reason why someone of Kuro's caliber would let a lowly genin live. You know something, don't you? She questioned. At first, the hazel-eyed female hesitated. In all honesty, she didn't want Shizune to get involved, which is why she was heavily regretting ever telling her about Kuro and his bloody history with Konoha. She couldn't really think of a way to actually tell her the things that she had left out. Tsunade-sama, what are you not telling me? I must know, Shizune demanded stronger. Not wanting to leave anything to chance, Tsunade took the best choice she thought possible just before she peered out her window only to see a strange bird circling the sky from afar. The time has come. Shizune, she said. Hi. The blonde sighed. Go and find Naruto, she ordered. Wait, what? Shizune questioned. The slug-sanin marched toward the window. You heard me. If you think that Naruto's still alive, then I won't stop you from looking for him. I've got some business to take care, she distantly trailed off. At this, Shizune was silent. Yet she knew exactly what her master meant by what she said. She found it hard to speak as she knew from experience what could happen if she ever disobeyed her. The worry she felt, however, was almost too much. You're going, aren't you? To fight him, she said with her eyes downcasted. Tsunade slightly lowered her head as she still faced the direction of the window. I told you that one day the time would come to fight him again. Hey, looks like I was right, she said. Now, all of the worry that Shizune felt for Naruto was all shifted to her mentor. She had remembered what the evil Kuro had told her. And she was now gripped with CSP-ling anxiety. She clutched her hand upon her heart at her racing thoughts. Tsunade-sama, I know that you feel obligated to. No. Tsunade interjected, I want to do this. I've been waiting for another chance at that bastard for what he did to me and my family. I don't care what it takes, or how long it takes. Kuro must s. Tsunade-sama, Shizune thought before unchecked tears of dread fell from her face. Please. Please be careful. Please. You're worrying too much, Shizune, Tsunade tried to console. Promise me that you'll come back in one piece, the brunette pleaded. I'll be fine. Promise me, Shizune yelled this time. Tsunade turned back to her pupil and for the second time in that same week, Tsunade's face was lit up with surprise. She saw Shizune's face drenched with tears. She was finally able to grasp how worried Shizune was for her, and for one moment, just one solitary moment, her cold exterior dropped. She walked up to her pupil. He's already cared you once. Please. All I ask, is that you promise me. Promise me, Shizune begged again before she suddenly felt two strong arms take her into a comforting embrace. Though she was slightly taken aback by the sudden action, Shizune quickly melted into her arms and sobbed. Both Tsunade and Shizune herself thought that she would be stronger than this, But after the experience she had went through just by looking at Kuro, she was at complete odds with the concept of certainty. Plus, Tsunade could understand what she was going through. She was scared too. She sure as hell didn't show it, but she was just scared if not more than Shizune was. I promise, Tsunade said gently. Shizune's sobs quelled and she relaxed a bit, just before she felt a quick jolt of agony at the center of her body. Quickly, she lost consciousness as Tsunade let her down on the floor gently. But in return you stay here and don't follow. I could never forgive myself if I allowed that monster to kill you. Never, she whispered as she trailed her hand over Shizune's hair, I gotta go. With that, the female Sannin leaped out of the open window to meet a couple of old friends. Meanwhile, at the destroyed Tanzaku castle, Jiraiya was leaning against one of the stone walls as he awaited the arrival of his fellow Sannin. Although, he had to admit, he didn't really uphold much hope that Orochimaru would attend. Then again, he was the one who beckoned Tsunade for help in the first place. He looked up into the sky and Saint USD the position of the clouds and sun. The time is almost here, the Toad Sannin thought to himself before closing his eyes to keep himself centered and focused. If memory served, then Jiraiya knew that his mind had to be in tip-top focus and concentration if he was going to have an edge in a battle with his old arch-enemy. In fact, he'd be damned if he let anything but the arrival of the other Sannin interrupt his meditation. Then lo and behold, Jiraiya, an oh-so-familiar voice called out to him. Without even opening his eyes, the white-haired sage responded, Tsunade. You made it, he said. Tsunade appeared in front of her old teammate. Of course I did. I wouldn't miss this for anything despite the downside, the blonde female said. You mean working with the Snake F? Ha Chu. Hearing the distant sneeze, Tsunade's first reaction was a tense of the body, but she relaxed a little bit when she realized who it was. So, you beat me here, the hazel-eyed Sannin said. Out from the corner, indeed came, Orochimaru, with a strong scowl on his face. Call me that again and I'll show you your own spleen, he threatened. HN, was all Jiraiya said. Since all of them were no at the same place, Tsunade started to grow a little edgy. Hold on a minute. Where is he? She questioned as she started to scale her surroundings. I was wondering the same thing. I thought for sure that he'd be here the second you arrived. But I don't even feel his presence, Jiraiya said. They have a point. I've opened all of my senses to this entire area and haven't detected even trace of Kerr intent, Orochimaru thought. After a few more moments of silence, Jiraiya could no longer hold it. Orochimaru. Let's cut right to the chase. What are you planning on doing once everything is said and done, huh? Surely you're not going to let bygones be bygones and invite us both to sing Kumbaya, or however you spell it, together at some Boy Scout bonfire, he said. Was that supposed to be a joke? What makes you think I'd tell you what I'm planning when you already know? Orochimaru hissed with a dark smile. Once this is over I'll finish what I started. At this, both Jiraiya and Tsunade scowled flames of hell at the snake tamer. Now don't shoot me such dirty looks. We're supposed to be a team, remember? Orochimaru mocked coldly as his smile widened. You should be so lucky, else you'd s right where you stand, Jiraiya threatened. A fake gasp escaped Orochimaru's mouth. Is that so? Well, I don't think Tsunade would be so fond of that notion. Not if she wants to keep our little bargain, he stated. At this, Jiraiya shot a look to a guilty Tsunade. He was aware that Orochimaru was manipulating the situation in some way and he knew that it had something to do with Tsunade, but that still didn't draw him any closer to an actual answer. But, before he could dwell on the subject any longer he, along with the other Sannin, finally felt it. The massive and superior flux of mouse intent directed solely at the three of them. It was at that exact instant that Jiraiya cursed himself for letting his concentration slip for even an instant when he knew that it meant instant death when dealing with the monster of Konoha. Within a split second, several sly spikes of death jutted out of the ground just after all three Sannin zipped out of the way. With the three of them scattered in the delta formation, they looked up and finally saw him. Standing upon the very spikes that were summoned was the cross-armed Kuro Kuratsune himself, oozing with a devilish violet-colored aura that screamed with malice and evil. The red trench-coated brute faced away from his old enemies with his eyes closed and a smile on his face. My dear friends, the legendary Sannin of Konoha. Jiraiya-kun, Tsunade-chan and, of course, Orochimaru Hebi. HM. I've waited for 2 decades for this single glorious moment. The moment where I, Kuro Kuratsune, exact my final vengeance upon each and every one of you. I shall hold the requiems for your souls, Kuro said with malicious desire. All of the Sannin simultaneously shifted into their fighting stances and glared daggers and cannonball at their old adversary. Quote. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Would you all care to share a bottle of the finest sake from the good old days with me before us? Kuro asked as he suddenly held up a bottle of rich-tasting sake that he had been saving for exactly 20 years. Predictably, the Sannin was silent and continued to glare Kuro down. Though he expected nothing more or less, he had to admit that he was a tad disappointed, but then he quickly got over it and downed the entire damn thing himself. Ah, now that's some good s, he growled with a cheeky grin. Well, I see that each of you are as eager as I am to get started. So, let us begin, shall we? Hold it, Jiraiya interjected. The red-haired monster stopped himself from attacking. What is it? He said rather irritantly. Not here. If you're so eager to get even with us, then you may as well allow us to take you to an area of our choosing, the Toad Sage suggested. At first, Kuro was silent, but then he grinned. HRMMM. You drive a hard bargain, Jiraiya-kun. But I suppose I can be patient for a few more moments. Where did you have in mind? He asked as he adjusted the shackle upon his wrists. Since it took Tsunade a couple of seconds to catch on, she immediately shifted her eyes to her side and notsied several terrified watchers, trembling in fear of what they were seeing. Leading him away from the innocent Smart move, the blonde thought before refocusing at the issue at hand. Gaining nods of recognition from both of his old teammates, Jiraiya and the rest of the Sannin vanished in a flash with Kuro repeating this action. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.